I ran into my sister at the mall and asked, "So when's the family trip happening?" She looked confused and said, "Wait, you don't know. We went last month." I'd paid $400 or $500 toward that vacation. I just stood there speechless, then pulled out my phone. The food court at Riverside Mall smelled like pretzels and teriyaki chicken. I was grabbing lunch between meetings when I spotted my sister browsing at a sunglasses kiosk near the fountain. We hadn't talked in a few weeks, which wasn't unusual given our busy schedules, but I figured I'd say hello and maybe grab a coffee together. "Melissa," I called out, weaving through the lunch crowd. She turned and her face went pale, actually pale. Her smile looked forced, stretching across her teeth like she'd just been caught doing something wrong. "Oh, hey," she said, tucking a strand of blonde hair behind her ear. "What are you doing here, Michelle?" "Same as everyone else, avoiding real food," I joked, holding up my sad desk salad. "Hey, so when's this family trip happening? I've been meaning to ask Mom about the final dates, but you know how she never answers her phone." Melissa's expression shifted. The color drained further from her cheeks, and she looked down at the sunglasses display like it held the secrets of the universe. "About that." She started, then stopped. Her hands fidgeted with a pair of aviators. "You really don't know." My stomach dropped. Something in her tone made my skin prickle. "Know what?" Melissa exhaled slowly, setting down the sunglasses. "We went last month. The trip happened already. I thought I assumed someone told you." The mall noise faded into white static. People walked past us laughing and shopping, but I felt like I was underwater. My mouth opened, then closed. Words wouldn't form properly. "Last month," I repeated flatly. "You went last month." "It was complicated," Melissa said quickly, her words tumbling out. "There was this issue with the cabin availability, and the dates got moved up suddenly, and everyone's schedules were just so hard to coordinate, and I paid $400 or $500 toward that trip." My voice sounded strange, distant. "I transferred it to Dad's account in March for the rental, the activities, food, everything we discussed at Easter dinner." Melissa's face crumpled. "I know, I'm so sorry. Dad was supposed to talk to you about it. He said he would handle it." "Handle what exactly?" "Handle stealing my money and excluding me from a family vacation I helped pay for." "It wasn't like that," she protested, but her eyes wouldn't meet mine. "The money thing. Dad said he'd pay you back. And you've just been so busy with work lately. We thought maybe you wouldn't even be able to make it anyway. So you decided for me." My hands trembled. I shoved them in my pockets. "You all decided I wasn't important enough to include, but my money was just fine." "That's not fair." "Fair." The word came out sharp enough that a woman passing by glanced over nervously. I lowered my voice. "You want to talk about fair? Did Tyler go on this trip?" Melissa's silence answered everything. Tyler, her husband, who complained about my career constantly, who made snide comments about me being single at 34, who called me a workaholic at every family gathering. "He was there," I said. "It wasn't a question. He's my husband and I'm your sister." "I've been your sister for 34 years, Melissa, since before you could walk. Since I taught you how to tie your shoes and helped you study for your SATs and threw you a baby shower when everyone said you were too young to start a family." My throat tightened. "But somehow Tyler, who's known you for 6 years, gets a spot on the vacation I funded and I get left behind." "Please don't make this harder than it already is," Melissa whispered. "Harder for who? For you." I pulled out my phone with shaking hands. "I need to go." "Wait, please. Can we talk about this? Maybe grab that coffee." I looked at her. Really looked at her. My little sister, who used to follow me around like a shadow, who cried. When I left for college, who told me I was her best friend. The sister who apparently thought so little of me that she'd take my money and go on vacation without a word. "No," I said simply. "I don't think we can." I walked away before she could respond, my heels clicking against the tile floor with sharp, angry beats. My hands were still shaking when I reached my car. I sat in the driver's seat, staring at my phone screen, rage building in my chest like a pressure cooker. The parking lot around me felt surreal. An elderly couple walked past holding grocery bags, laughing about something mundane. A teenager backed out of a space too quickly, narrowly missing another car. The world kept spinning while mine had just tilted sideways. I pulled up my banking app with trembling fingers and stared at the transaction from March 15th. There it was, $400, $500, transferred to Robert Hayes, my father's account. The memo line read, "Family Vacation Fund, can't wait." Looking at that stupid emoji now made my stomach turn. How long had they known? That question kept circling my brain. The trip was last month, which meant they'd been planning this exclusion for weeks, maybe longer. Every family text message, Every casual phone call, where nobody mentioned the trip had already happened, all of it had been a lie. They'd looked me in the eye at various points during those weeks and said nothing. I opened my text messages and scrolled back through the family chat. There, from 6 weeks ago, Mom had written, "Can't wait for our family time together." I'd responded with hearts and excitement. 3 weeks ago, Dad had mentioned something about our upcoming adventure in a group message. I'd replied, asking if we needed to coordinate anything. He'd said, "All taken care of, sweetheart, all taken care of." He wasn't wrong. They'd taken care of excluding me while keeping my money. The first call went to my mother. She answered on the third ring, her voice bright and cheerful. "Sweetheart, how are you?" "I just ran into Melissa at the mall," I said, my voice eerily calm. "She told me you all went on the family trip last month, the one I contributed $4,500 to." The silence stretched so long I thought the call had dropped. "Honey," Mom finally said, her tone shifting to that careful, placating voice she used when she knew she'd messed up. "We were going to tell you. Your father was supposed to call you about the date change." The date change that coincidentally happened without me. "You're always so busy with work. We thought—" "Stop!" I closed my eyes, pressing my palm against my forehead. "Please stop lying to me. If you didn't want me there, you could have just said so. Instead, you took my money and lied about it for weeks." "We didn't lie," Mom protested. The timing got complicated." Was there even a date change, or was this the plan all along? Another pause. That told me everything. "I want my money back," I said. "All of it, by the end of the week." "Well, that might be difficult. The money's already been spent on—" "I don't care what it was spent on. You took $400 or $500 from me under false pretenses. That's theft, Mom. I'm giving you until Friday to return it, or I'm taking legal action." "You wouldn't do that," she said, but her voice wavered. "We're family." "Family doesn't steal from each other. Friday, Mom." I hung up before she could respond. My heart pounded so hard I felt dizzy. 3 deep breaths. 4, 5. The next call went to my father. Voicemail, of course. "Dad, it's me. I know about the trip. I know you all went without me after taking my money. I want it back by Friday, or I'm getting lawyers involved. Your choice." My finger hovered over the next contact. Melissa again. No. I'd said what I needed to say to her, but there was someone else who needed to hear from me. Kevin answered on the first ring, his voice smug as always. Well heard you ran into Melissa today." "You knew," I said. "You knew the whole time." "Knew what?" "That your family finally got tired of working around your ridiculous schedule, that they decided to actually have fun without waiting for you to pencil them in between meetings." He laughed, and the sound made my blood boil. "Come on, you had to know this was coming eventually." "I paid for that vacation. And they used your money well. The cabin was beautiful. Your parents say thanks, by the way." Something inside me snapped, not in a dramatic, explosive way, more like a cord that had been fraying for years, finally giving way. Quiet, decisive, final. "I'm going to ruin you," I said softly. Kevin laughed again, harder this time. "What are you going to do, sue your own family? Good luck with that. You'll look like a greedy, bitter spinster who can't handle being left out of one trip." "We'll see," I said and hung up. My hands had stopped shaking. The rage was still there, burning hot in my chest, but it had transformed into something cold and focused. I'd spent my entire adult life building a career in financial consulting. I knew exactly how to handle money disputes. I knew exactly who to call. Maxwell Brennan answered his office line on the second ring. Max had been my attorney for years, handling everything from contract negotiations to that nightmare with my previous landlord. He was sharp, ruthless when necessary, and he owed me a favor. "Tell me you're calling with good news," he said by way of greeting. "I need your help with something," I said. "Family matter, financial theft, and I need it handled quickly and thoroughly." "I'm listening." I explained everything, the vacation planning, the money transfer, the secret trip, the confrontation at the mall. Max listened without interrupting, and I could practically hear him taking notes. "Do you have documentation of the transfer?" he asked finally. "Bank statements, text messages about the trip planning, emails, everything. And they're refusing to return the funds. Haven't heard back from my dad yet, but my mom basically said they spent it, and getting it back would be difficult." "That's not how this works," Max said, and I could hear the smile in his voice, the predatory one he got when he saw a case he could win. "They accepted money for a specific purpose, failed to fulfill that purpose, and are now refusing to return the funds. That's textbook fraud, possibly theft by deception, depending on how we frame it." "How fast can you move on this?" "I can have a demand letter drafted and sent by tomorrow morning." If they don't respond appropriately within the time frame we give them, we file a civil suit. Given the dollar amount, we could also potentially involve law enforcement, though that gets messier with family. I want the letter sent tomorrow, I said. Give them 3 business days to respond. If they don't pay back every cent with interest for the time they've had it, we file immediately. You're sure about this? Once we start down this road, there's no going back. Your family's going to be furious. They should have thought about that before they stole from me and lied about it. All right, Max said. I'll get started. Send me all the documentation you have and we'll make this airtight. After hanging up with Max, I sat in my car for a long time watching people come and go from the mall. Families with shopping bags, teenagers laughing, couples holding hands. Normal people living normal lives, not dealing with betrayal, from the people who were supposed to love them most. My phone buzzed, a text from Melissa. Please don't do anything rash. We can work this out. Family is more important than money. I typed back with steady fingers. You're right. Family should be more important than money. You should have remembered that before you took mine and left me behind. Another buzz, this time from Mom. I talked to your father. We can give you back half now and the rest over the next few months. Please be reasonable about this. Reasonable. They wanted me to be reasonable about their theft. Full amount by Friday, or my attorney proceeds with legal action. This is non-negotiable. My phone started ringing immediately. Mom calling back. I declined it. It rang again. Melissa this time. Declined. Dad declined. Tyler, which actually made me laugh, definitely declined. 3 voicemails appeared in quick succession. I deleted them without listening. That evening, I forwarded all my documentation to Max. Bank statements showing the $500 transfer in March. Text messages from the family group chat discussing the vacation plans, including dates I'd marked as available on my calendar. Emails from Dad confirming receipt of my payment and promising to take care of all the arrangements. Screenshots of the conversation where we discussed activities and meal planning. Everything painted a clear picture, a family vacation planned together. Paid for in part by me, then executed without me, while they kept my money. Max emailed back within the hour. This is even better than I thought. Their own messages establish intent and agreement. If they fight this, they'll lose badly. Letter goes out at 9:00 a.m. tomorrow. I made dinner that night in my quiet apartment. Pasta with marinara. Simple and comforting. My phone kept buzzing with messages, but I turned off notifications from my family contacts. Whatever they had to say could wait until they were ready to have an honest conversation, which clearly wasn't happening tonight. Around 9:00, my doorbell rang. I checked the camera app on my phone and saw Melissa standing there, looking miserable and holding what appeared to be a bottle of wine. I didn't answer. She rang again, then knocked. Please, I know you're home. Your car is here. I just want to talk. Through the camera, I watched her stand there for 5 minutes, occasionally knocking, before finally leaving. Her shoulders slumped as she walked back to her car, and for a brief moment, I felt the flicker of guilt. Then I remembered her face at the mall, the way she tried to justify excluding me, the way she'd let her husband mock me on the phone. The guilt evaporated. The demand letter arrived at my parents' house via certified mail the next morning at 10:47 a.m. I know because I got the notification from the tracking app. Max had copied me on the letter itself, and it was a thing of beauty, professional, cold, and absolutely damning. It laid out the facts clearly. Money transferred for a specific purpose not fulfilled. Beneficiary failed to return funds, legal action to follow if payment not received within 3 business days. No emotional language, no accusations, just clean legal prose that made it crystal clear they'd messed up. My phone exploded. 15 missed calls before noon. Text messages ranging from pleading to angry to bewildered. A voicemail from Dad that started with, "What the heck do you think you're doing?" and ended with, "Call me immediately." Nothing from Tyler, which was interesting. Melissa sent a novel-length text about how hurt she was that I'd involve lawyers, how she never thought I'd put money before family, how disappointed she was in me. I sent one reply to the family group chat. You had multiple opportunities to do the right thing. You chose not to. This is the consequence of that choice. Then I muted the conversation. Work became my sanctuary. I threw myself into a new client proposal, reviewed financial projections until my eyes crossed, stayed late at the office 3 nights in a row. My colleague Stephanie noticed cornering me by the coffee maker on Thursday morning. Okay, what's going on? You've got that look, she said, pouring herself a cup of the terrible break room coffee that we all pretended was drinkable. What look? The I'm about to destroy someone's life and I have the spreadsheets to prove it look. I've seen it before, usually right before you eviscerate someone's terrible business plan in a meeting. Despite everything, I smiled. Family drama. Don't want to bore you with it. Family drama that requires your legal murder face. Now I'm intrigued. I gave her the abbreviated version. Stephanie's eyes got wider with each detail, and by the end, she was shaking her head in disbelief. They took $4,500 from you and went without you. Are they insane? Apparently they thought I'd just let it go. Do they not know you at all? Stephanie laughed. I've watched you spend 6 hours tracking down a $3 accounting error because the principle of it bothered you. Did they really think you'd shrug off $4,500 and a massive betrayal? Seems that way. Well, I hope you crush them, she said cheerfully. Family or not, that's messed up. You want to grab dinner tonight? You look like you could use a friend. I accepted, grateful for the distraction. We went to a Thai place downtown, and Stephanie kept me entertained with stories about her disaster of a dating life. It felt good to laugh to think about something other than my family's betrayal for a few hours. Friday morning arrived the deadline. I'd heard nothing from my family except increasingly desperate messages that I'd continued to ignore. At 8:30 a.m., Max called. They haven't contacted my office, he said. Want me to file? I thought about it for exactly 3 seconds. About Melissa's fake smile at the mall, about Mom's placating lies, about Kevin's mocking voice, about Dad's silence through all of it. File it, I said. Done. You'll have the case number by this afternoon. Fair warning, things are about to get very uncomfortable. They already are. Might as well make them count. The lawsuit hit the county record system by noon. Civil case demanding return of $4,500 plus interest, court costs, and attorney fees. Max had filed it against all 3 of them, Mom, Dad, and Melissa, jointly and severally, liable, meaning any or all of them could be on the hook for the full amount plus damages. My phone rang off the hook for the rest of the day. I ignored all of it. At 4:47 p.m., a new voice joined the chorus. Aunt Patricia, my mother's sister. She left a voicemail dripping with disappointment about how I was tearing the family apart over money, how my mother was in tears, how everyone was so shocked that I could be this cruel. I saved the voicemail not to listen to again, but as evidence of the kind of pressure they were applying. Max said it might be useful later. That evening I got a text from an unknown number. It took me a minute to realize it was from my niece Emma Melissa's 12-year-old daughter. She was old enough to have her own phone and apparently old enough to be recruited as a messenger. Aunt Michelle is really upset. Grandma, too. Can you please drop this? It's just money. I stared at the message for a long time. They'd gotten a teenager involved. They were actually using a kid to try to guilt trip me into backing down. I didn't reply. The following Monday, Max called with an update. They've retained counsel. Jackson Weaver, local guy, does a lot of family law and estate stuff. He's already reaching out about settlement. What are they offering? Full repayment of the principal. No interest, no costs. They want you to sign a non-disclosure agreement and a release waiving any future claims. Absolutely not, I said immediately. They pay everything: interest, attorney, fees, court costs. No NDA. They apologize in writing, and I want confirmation that they understand what they did was wrong. The apology thing isn't standard. I don't care. That's my condition. They can accept it or face me in court. You're really not messing around with this, Max said. Would you, if your family did this to you? Fair point, he conceded. I'll communicate your terms. The counteroffers started rolling in. They'd pay interest but not attorney fees. They'd pay everything but wanted the NDA. They'd do it all, but the written apology was unnecessarily humiliating. I rejected each one. Every single time Max would call and run the new offer past me. And every single time I'd say no. My terms were my terms. Take it or leave it. During this period, I discovered something interesting about standing your ground. People reveal themselves in ways they never intended. Aunt Patricia called me directly one evening, her voice saccharine sweet as she tried a different approach than her earlier guilt trip voicemail. Honey, I understand you're hurt, she began, but your mother is beside herself. She's not sleeping, barely eating. Is the money really worth destroying her health? Is the money worth stealing? I countered. Because that's what they did. That's such an ugly word, Patricia said, her tone shifting slightly. They made a mistake in judgment. People make mistakes. Mistakes are accidental. This was deliberate. They planned a trip, took my money for it, went without me, and lied about it for weeks. That's not a mistake. It's a choice. You always were so black and white about things, Hannah, she said, and now the sweetness was completely gone. So rigid, unable to forgive. Your mother warned me you'd be difficult about this. Good, I said. I hope she warned you correctly because I'm not backing down. Patricia hung up on me. I added her name to my mental list of people who apparently thought I should just accept being stolen from and excluded because family. The whisper campaign started shortly after that. I heard through mutual friends that various family members were spreading their version of events. I was greedy, obsessed with money, holding a grudge over nothing, tearing the family apart with my selfishness. Someone even suggested I'd never intended to go on the trip and was using this as an excuse to cause drama. Each lie made my resolve stronger. We were 3 weeks into the legal battle when something interesting happened. Stephanie came into my office one afternoon with a strange expression on her face. So, I have weird news, she said, closing the door behind her. Remember my boyfriend Greg? The one I'm always complaining about. The one who's emotionally unavailable but makes good pancakes. That's the one. She'd hesitated. Anyway, he's an accountant, and he was telling me about this new client his firm just took on. Small business owner, consulting company, having some cash flow issues. She paused dramatically. The business owner's name is Tyler Sutton. My head snapped up. Tyler. My brother-in-law, Tyler. Same last name, same industry, same general area. So I did some light stalking on LinkedIn, and yep, same guy. And according to Greg, who maybe told me slightly more than he should have after 2 beers, Tyler's business is in trouble, like serious trouble. Hasn't paid himself a salary in 4 months kind of trouble. I sat back in my chair processing this information. Tyler, who mocked me on the phone about being a workaholic. Tyler, who acted so superior at family gatherings. Tyler, who laughed about using my money for their vacation. How bad are we talking, I asked. Stephanie lowered her voice. Greg said the business has maybe 3 months before it's underwater completely. He's trying to restructure debt, but it's not looking good. Something about a major client and falling through and taking their recurring revenue with them. Huh, I said neutrally, but my mind was already working through the implications. You're thinking something evil, aren't you? Stephanie asked. I can see it on your face. I'm thinking that Tyler Sutton's struggling business consulting company might benefit from the expertise of someone who specializes in financial turnarounds and business restructuring. I pulled up my professional network on my computer. Someone like, say, the senior financial analyst at Morrison & Hayes. Someone who has connections with half the mid-sized businesses in the tri-state area. You're going to help him, Stephanie sounded incredulous. Oh, no, I said, smiling slowly. I'm going to make sure every potential client he approaches knows exactly what kind of person they'd be working with. I'm going to ensure that every business owner in our network understands that Tyler Sutton is the type of man who thinks stealing from family is funny, that he's financially desperate, that he's exactly the kind of person you don't want having access to your company's financial information. That's diabolical. That's strategic, I corrected. I'm not going to lie about him. I'm just going to make sure the truth is very well known in all the right circles. I started that evening, a casual mention to a client over dinner about my ongoing family legal situation, making sure to name Tyler and his company. A comment during a networking event about the importance of integrity in consulting relationships, followed by a personal story about my brother-in-law. A friendly warning to a business owner friend who I knew was looking for financial consulting services. Nothing actionable, nothing defamatory, just facts shared conversationally, spreading like ripples across my professional network. Max called 2 days later, sounding amused. So their attorney just contacted me in a panic. Apparently, Tyler's business is losing potential clients at an alarming rate, and he's convinced you're behind it. How would I be behind his business failures? I'm not responsible for his reputation or his business management skills. That's essentially what I told their lawyer in more professional terms. Max paused. But here's the interesting part. They want to settle all your terms. Full payment attorney fees, court costs, and a written apology from each of them. My heart rate picked up. What changed? Tyler's freaking out. He thinks you're going to destroy his business. And honestly, from what their attorney said, it sounds like you're doing exactly that. They want this over before you do more damage. I want to see the apologies before I agree to anything, I said. And they need to be genuine, not some template their lawyer wrote. The apologies arrived via email 3 days later. 3 separate letters, one from each of them. Dad's was short and gruff. I'm sorry for not communicating with you about the trip date change and for not returning your money immediately when you asked. This got out of hand and I should have handled it better. Mom's was longer and more emotional, full of explanations about how they thought I wouldn't mind, how they'd gotten caught up in the planning, how they never meant to hurt me. It felt more like justification than apology, but it did include the actual words, "I'm sorry," and an acknowledgement that taking my money without delivering what was promised was wrong. Melissa's made me pause. It was 2 pages long, handwritten and scanned. The writing was messy, like she'd been crying while writing it. She apologized for lying to me at the mall, for not standing up for me, for letting Tyler influence her decisions about family, for taking me for granted. She wrote about how she'd always looked up to me, how somewhere along the way she'd let jealousy poison that relationship, how she was ashamed of what they'd done. "I don't expect you to forgive me," she wrote at the end. "I know I destroyed something that might not ever be fixed, but I'm sorry, truly deeply sorry. You deserve so much better from all of us, but especially from me." I read that letter 3 times, sitting at my kitchen table with a glass of wine. Part of me was still furious. Part of me was exhausted. And a small part of me, buried under all the anger and betrayal, was sad. Sad for what we'd had and what we'd lost. But I wasn't ready to forgive. Maybe I never would be. "The apologies are acceptable," I told Max. "Draw up the settlement agreement." The money arrived in my account on a Tuesday morning. $4, $500, principal $147 in accrued interest, $6, $800 in attorney fees and court costs. Watching that deposit hit my account felt surreal. I'd won officially, legally, completely won, but it didn't feel the way I'd expected it to. Max called to confirm I'd received everything. "So that's done. You planning to have any contact with them going forward?" "I honestly don't know," I admitted. "Part of me wants to just cut them off completely, but they're still my family and that's complicated." "It always is," he said sympathetically. "For what it's worth, I think you handled this exactly right. They needed to face real consequences, and you made sure they did. Whether you eventually reconcile or not, at least you stood up for yourself." After we hung up, I sat with my phone in my hand, looking at the family group chat I'd muted weeks ago. There were 247 unread messages. I scrolled through them without reading carefully. Lots of anger, lots of pleading, lots of attempts at manipulation. Some messages from extended family members weighing in with their opinions. At the very bottom, sent just an hour ago, was a message from Melissa. "I know you probably won't read this, and I don't blame you, but I wanted you to know that Tyler and I are in marriage counseling. A lot of stuff came out during all of this, and I'm starting to see how toxic some of our dynamics have been. I'm working on it, not for you, but for me and the kids. I hope someday we can talk again, but I understand if that never happens. You were right about everything." I stared at that message for a long time. Then I did something I hadn't done in weeks. I replied, "I'm glad you're getting help. That takes courage. I'm not ready for a relationship right now, but I hope the counseling helps you." Her response came immediately, like she'd been waiting by her phone. "Thank you. That means more than you know." I muted the chat again, but it felt different this time. Less like slamming a door and more like closing it gently, leaving open the possibility that maybe someday it might open again. Work continued. Life continued. I went to Stephanie's birthday party and laughed with colleagues over ridiculous karaoke. I took a long weekend and drove up to the mountains, spending 3 days hiking and not thinking about family drama. I started therapy because even though I'd won my legal battle, I was carrying around a lot of complicated feelings about all of it. Tyler's business folded 2 months after the settlement. According to Stephanie's boyfriend, it wasn't just because of reputation damage, though. That hadn't helped. The financial problems had been building for a while, and losing those potential clients just accelerated the inevitable. Tyler took a job at a larger consulting firm, working for someone else instead of running his own company. I felt neither happy nor sad about it. It was just information. 3 months after everything concluded, I got a card in the mail. Inside was a child's drawing of 2 stick figures holding hands with "I miss you, Aunt" written in crayon at the top. Melissa's daughter Emma had drawn it. On the back in Melissa's handwriting, "No pressure. Just wanted you to know you're thought of." I put the drawing on my fridge. 6 months later, Emma's birthday invitation arrived. A kid-friendly party at a local bounce house place. The invitation was addressed just to me. No +1, no assumptions. Would love to have you there, but no hard feelings if you're not ready. Melissa. I RSVP'd. Yes, the party was awkward. Mom cried when she saw me trying to hug me while I stood stiff and uncomfortable. Dad shook my hand formally like I was a business acquaintance. Tyler stayed on the other side of the party the entire time, which was fine with me. But Emma lit up when she saw me running over for a hug that felt genuine and uncomplicated in the way only a 12-year-old's affection can be. Melissa and I barely spoke, but at one point, while the kids were destroying cake, she came over to where I stood by the punch bowl. "Thank you for coming," she said quietly. "It means a lot to Emma especially, but to me too." "She's a good kid," I said. "This isn't her fault, and she shouldn't be punished because the adults in her life messed up." "Fair," Melissa acknowledged. She hesitated, then added, "I really am in therapy. It's helping. I'm learning a lot about boundaries and people-pleasing and letting other people's opinions influence me too much. It's hard work, but I'm trying." "Good," I said simply. "I hope it helps." We stood in silence for a moment watching the kids play. It wasn't comfortable, but it wasn't hostile either. It was just neutral. A starting point, maybe, for something different than what we'd had before. I didn't stay long after cake was served. I said goodbye to Emma, nodded to my parents, and left without much ceremony. But as I drove home, I realized something had shifted. The rage that had fueled me through the legal battle that had burned hot and focused for months had finally cooled to something manageable. I'd stood up for myself. I'd drawn a line and enforced it. I'd demanded accountability and gotten it. Whether my family and I would ever return to something resembling a normal relationship, I didn't know. Maybe we would in some new configuration that acknowledged what had happened and respected the boundaries I'd established. Maybe we wouldn't, and I'd have to grieve that loss and move forward anyway. But either way, I'd learned something valuable. My worth wasn't negotiable. My dignity wasn't up for debate. And the people in my life family, or otherwise, needed to treat me with the respect I deserved, or they wouldn't have a place in my life at all. That mall encounter, as devastating as it had been in the moment, had given me clarity. It had shown me exactly where I stood in my family's priorities, and it had forced me to decide what I was willing to accept. I chose not to accept betrayal, even from the people who were supposed to love me most. A year after the mall incident, I received a text from Melissa on a random Tuesday afternoon. No special occasion, no birthday or holiday. "Remember how we used to get coffee at that place on 5th Street before you'd drive me to my college classes? I was thinking about that today. Those were good times." I looked at that message for a while before responding. They were. The vanilla lattes were terrible, but the company was good. "They really were terrible," she agreed. "I'm free Saturday morning if you want to grab coffee somewhere with better lattes. No pressure." I thought about it for exactly 10 seconds before typing back. "Saturday works, 10 a.m. It's a date, and I'm buying." "You're definitely buying," I confirmed. Saturday morning arrived gray and drizzly. Typical autumn weather. I almost canceled 3 times, my thumb hovering over my phone, anxiety churning in my stomach. But I'd said I'd go, and I kept my word. Melissa was already there when I arrived, sitting at a corner table with 2 lattes and what looked like genuine nervousness on her face. She stood when she saw me, then seemed unsure whether to hug me or not, and ended up doing this awkward half-wave instead. "Hi," she said. "I got you a vanilla latte, but I can get something else if you want." "This is fine," I said, sitting down across from her. We talked for 2 hours. Not about the lawsuit or the betrayal, not at first. We talked about work and her kids and the book she was reading and my recent disastrous attempt at growing tomatoes on my apartment balcony. Small talk. Safe talk, the kind of conversation you have when you're testing the waters to see if there's anything left worth saving. Near the end, as we were getting ready to leave, Melissa finally broached the subject we'd been avoiding. "I know I already apologized in writing, but I need to say it to your face," she said, her hands wrapped around her empty coffee cup. "What we did to you was unforgivable. I've been working through it in therapy, trying to understand why I let it happen, why I didn't stand up for you. There's no excuse that makes it okay. I just wanted you to hear me say that out loud, looking at you, not hiding behind a letter." "Okay," I said, because what else was there to say? "I don't expect things to go back to how they were," she continued. "I know that's probably impossible, but I hope maybe we can figure out something new, something better, built on honesty this time instead of assumptions and taking each other for granted." "Maybe," I said carefully, "but it's going to take time, Melissa, a lot of time. Trust isn't something you can just rebuild overnight." "I know. I'm willing to put in that time if you are." I looked at my little sister, really looked at her. She'd lost weight,